You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great.
There's nothing that comes out of quitting besides knowing that you didn't finish. We finish everything. You start it, finish it. When I pick it up and say I'm gonna start it, I gotta finish it. It all don't work. It all ain't the best. It all ain't knocked out the park. But I walk away saying I finished it. I did it.
What knowledge that you have in this economy, part of what we need, that people are willing to pay you for that. Next is talent. What talent? My talent is talking. To me, my definition of success is doing what you love to do and find somebody to pay you to do it. So I find people to pay me to talk. I make more in 1 hour than 90% of the American public earn working for a whole year doing what I love to do. That I've developed my talent. You want to master your talent. Find out what it is that you love to do. I love to talk.
How often do we procrastinate? How often do we say stuff like, yeah, I really should do that. I don't know. I guess I'm just lazy. We have a problem with too many choices, too many options, and not following through on any of them.
So what do you love to do? And then explore ways in which you can earn a living doing that. Cooking, writing, painting, working with numbers, working with people. The other thing is, not only must you have knowledge, talent, some skill, but the other thing that's important, faith to act on whatever your dream is. So the faith to act on those dreams, those desires. Here's scripture that I like very much. Proverbs 16 chapter, 3rd verse. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. Commit means to carry into action deliberately. Commit means to make it happen no matter what. See, when you make a commitment, I'm going to become wealthy. When you make it important, when you decide I'm going to do it no matter what, life changes for you. See, most people don't keep their commitments to their commitments. That's why they lead lives of poverty, lives of misery, lives of unhappiness.
And with the joy and results of our efforts, we continue to apply, to learn, to observe, to fuel our ambition with the positive reinforcement of continued progress. Pretty soon, we'll find that we're swept into a spiral of achievement, a vertical rise to success. But for this whole process to work for us, we must first master the art of discipline, self-discipline, consistent self-discipline. What's at the core of achieving the good life? The major key to the good life. The major key is not in learning how to set goals. It is not in learning how to better manage your time. It is not in mastering the attributes of leadership. Every day in 1,000 different ways, we are trying to improve ourselves by learning how to do things. We spend a lifetime gathering knowledge in classrooms, in textbooks, in experiences. Now, if knowledge is power, if knowledge is the forerunner to success, then why do we fall short of our objectives? Why, in spite of all our knowledge and in spite of our collective experiences, do we find ourselves aimlessly wandering, settling for a life of existence rather than a life of substance? While there may be many answers to this question, the fundamental answer is the absence of discipline. Applying all that we know. That's the key word, discipline, self-discipline. We might add one more word here, consistent. Consistent self-discipline. Better than knowledge is applied knowledge. And once we've applied our knowledge, we must study the results of that process. Apply our knowledge, study the results. Refine our approach. Finally, by trying and observing and refining and trying again, our knowledge will inevitably produce worthy results, admirable results.
Life is not fair, and that is the reality. disease and accidents don't care if their victim is a good person. They have no reason, no justification, and no mercy. And you cannot stop it. So, what do you do?
Life's not easy. It is not. Don't try to make it that way. Life's not fair. It never was. It isn't now, and it won't ever be.
People always ask me like there's some magical response. How did you go from just coming from Liberty City, selected one of the top 5 speakers in the world? I was willing to work. Most people aren't willing to do that because I was moving. I want you to write this down. Keep it moving. One of the things that you don't want to do is become comfortable with where you are when you know in your heart of hearts you can have more and you can do more, and there's a life for you beyond survival. And I just felt that I could do more.
Keep going because there's people that don't want to see you succeed. Keep going because you want to prove those people wrong. You want to knock the naysayers down. You want to make them your footstool. I'm telling you to keep going when you face opposition. I'm telling you to keep going when you face adversity.
Socrates said the uncommitted life isn't worth living. So part of what you must do, whatever commitment, whatever covenant you make with God while you're here, to go back and be a better father, to go back to make a difference in the community, to go back to change your life, to decide not to ever to use drugs or alcohol again, to decide that you're going to begin to recreate yourself, that you're going to be reborn to a new state of consciousness. Whatever commitment that you make, keep your commitment to your commitment. No matter what. If it's hard, then do it hard. But keep your commitment to your commitment. First step is you got to live your calling. You got to decide what is it you love. Second thing is you got to work on yourself. Write this down under work on yourself. You don't get in life what you want. You get in life what you are. You have a job. You're generating $1,200 a year or $2,000 or $500,000. Whatever you earn, whatever you're producing in your life is reflection of you. I can look at what you're producing and I can tell you a lot about who you are. See, when you leave here, you've got to make a commitment to be more fruitful, to be more productive, to make greater impact. So what will allow you to do that? You got to spend time working on yourself.
You have to make that decision for yourself. You have to decide, I'm going to pursue that path, which is going to be really, really hard and difficult and take many, many years and be a great sacrifice, or am I going to pursue being a great employee? Now, if you want to be a great employee, you've got to remember something. You're hired to help someone else achieve their goals, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you don't understand that, you are not going to be a good employee. So you have a boss and they say, here's our goal for the quarter. You're going to help me get there. You work like hell to make sure that they achieve that goal. You're part of that team. That's very important. And then you keep moving up the ladder. And the great thing about that is if you're a good employee, you can also do very well. It's not the same as being an entrepreneur. You're never going to probably make as much money as you could have had you started the company, is my point. But you'll get the Saturdays off, the Sundays, hang out, go to the soccer games with the kids, have a more balanced life. There is no balance in entrepreneurship.
You've got to die as you are now. You've got to be willing to give up who you are now for what you can become. Certain things will no longer fit into your life. There's no place for it. In order to do something you've never done, you've got to be someone you've never been. So you've got to spend serious time reading, writing your goals down, reading scripture, anchoring yourself spiritually to handle the storms of life, because they're going to come. So every day you have to sell yourself and get out of your mind those old thoughts, that old belief system. Every day you've got to sell yourself on that it's possible. But you got to put a new mind in you. You got to get out of your mind. You got to begin to restructure your thinking. every day, you've got to begin to recondition your mind. See, let me share something with you. The easiest thing I've ever done was to earn $1 million. The most difficult thing I've ever done was to believe it could happen to me. That was the most difficult part, to believe. Given the fact that I was born in an abandoned building on a floor, being labeled educable, mentally retarded, not having any college training, I used to feel all my life that people who had college degrees were more intelligent than me. I remember going to see the late Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, the author of the book, The Power of Positive Thinking. And I used to look at him up on stage and I said, I could do that. I would love to talk to people. I'd love to talk to people. And I said, I could do that. But then when I started going back to my car, my mental conditioning activated itself. And it said, Les Brown, you can't do that. You don't have a college education. Les Brown, you can't do that. You don't have the training. You've never worked for a major corporation. You can't do that. What makes you think you can earn $5, $10, $15, $20,000 in an hour? You don't earn that now working for 2 or 3 months. What makes you think that you can speak for AT&T, Procter & Gamble, McDonald's Corporation, General Electric? These are clients I have now. You've never even worked for them. How many of you ever thought about something you wanted to do and you talk yourself out of it? Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. That inner conversation is what's going to haunt you. After standing here and saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. After saying that again and again, we are more than conquerors. That inner conversation will cause you, when you leave here, to go back leading a life of mediocrity, leading a life of unproductivity, leading a life of poverty. See, we live in a world where we believe that bad things are supposed to happen to us. I remember at a point in my life, Bishop, when things are going good for me, and I said, this is too good to be true. Something is bound to happen. Guess what? It did. Watch your words. Watch what you say about yourself, about your affairs. Be conscious of that on a daily basis. Why? Because your words are powerful. In the beginning was the word. Life and death is in the tongue. Watch what you say. Never say I'm broke. Say I'm overcoming a cash flow problem.
It takes consistent self-discipline to master the art of setting goals, to master the art of time management, to master the art of leadership, to master the art of parenting and relationships. If we don't make consistent self-discipline part of our daily lives, the results we seek will be sporadic and elusive. It takes a consistent effort to truly manage our valuable time, or we'll be consistently frustrated. It takes discipline to conquer the nagging voices in our minds, the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of poverty, the fear of a broken heart. It takes discipline to keep trying when that nagging voice within us brings up the possibility of failure. It takes discipline to admit our errors and recognize our limitations. The voice of the human ego speaks to all of us. Sometimes the voice of ego says that we should magnify our value beyond our results. It leads us to exaggerate, to not be totally honest. It takes discipline to be totally honest, both with ourselves and with others. Be certain of one thing: every exaggeration of the truth, once detected by others, destroys our credibility and makes all that we say and do suspect. As soon as a business colleague figures out that we tend to exaggerate, guess what? They'll always think we exaggerate, and they'll never quite hold us in the same regard again. Never. It takes discipline to change a habit, because habits are formed a little bit each day, every day, every day. Once habits are formed, they act like a giant cable. They act like a nearly unbreakable instinct that only long-term disciplined activity can change. We must unweave every strand of the cable of habits slowly and methodically until the cable that once held us in bondage becomes nothing more than scattered strands of wire. It takes the consistent application of a new discipline, a more desirable one, to overcome one which is less desirable. It takes discipline to plan. It takes discipline to execute our plan. It takes discipline to look with full objectivity at the results of our applied plan. And it takes discipline to change either our plan or our method of executing that plan if the results are poor. It takes discipline to be firm when the world throws opinions at our feet. It takes discipline to ponder the value of someone else's opinion when our pride and our arrogance leads us to believe that we are the only ones with the answers. Now, if discipline is the key word and if discipline is the key action, then what exactly is discipline? One good answer might be that discipline is a constant human awareness of the need for action and a conscious act by us to implement that action. If our awareness and our implementations occur at the same time, then we begin a valued sequence of disciplined activity. Now, here's the other side of discipline. If there's considerable time that passes between the moment of awareness and the time of our implementation, then that is called procrastination. Doing it tomorrow instead of today. Procrastination, an almost exact opposite of discipline. The voice within us says, get it done. Discipline then says, do it now. Do it to the best of your ability, today, tomorrow, and always, until finally, the worthy deed becomes instinctive. Procrastination says later, tomorrow, whenever I get a chance. In every circumstance we face, we are constantly presented with these two choices. Do it now or do it later. Discipline and procrastination. A choice between a disciplined existence, bearing the fruit of achievement and contentment, or procrastination, the easy life for which the future will bear no fruit, only the bare branches of mediocrity. If John isn't making sales, we say, okay, let's get on him about making sales. But perhaps we should ask, why isn't he making sales? Someone says, he isn't making enough calls. We say, okay, let's get on him about making calls. Well, maybe we should ask another question first. Why isn't he making calls? Well, it's because he isn't getting up early and getting out into the marketplace. We say, okay, let's get on him about getting up early and getting out into the marketplace. Well, perhaps we should ask just one more question. Why isn't he getting up early and getting out into the marketplace? Now we have probably gotten to the heart of the problem. Perhaps it's something personal, problems at home, not his sales skill. The real problems are usually about 3 or 4 questions deep. So if you get good at asking questions, you can save yourself a lot of time by getting right at the heart of the matter when dealing with other people. Otherwise, you tend to waste valuable time just finding out what the problem really is. Now, here is the last part of time management. Learn to think on paper. From all of my experience working on many projects and in many countries, one of the major time savers is thinking on paper. It is so important to take things out of your head and put them on paper, then work from the paper. Building your business is a lot like building a house. You take the ideas out of your head, put them on paper, and then build from the plan. We have a saying on this idea: operate from document, not from thought. It's just about over when a person wakes up in the morning and says, let's see, what shall I do today? Too late, right? The best thing you can do now is to take today off and at least plan tomorrow. Let me give you 4 major ways to think on paper. The first is a journal. I spend a lot of time talking about journals in my lectures and programs, primarily because it is such an invaluable tool for the serious student of the better life. A journal is merely a gathering place for all the good information that comes your way, from sermons, from books, from lectures, from business conferences, magazines, thinking time, research, any source of information that you feel is worth keeping. Don't let the good ideas of life escape you. Remember, most good ideas usually only come by once. Get into the habit of capturing them with pen and paper by making daily use of your journal. Now maybe you won't write in it every day, but at least make sure it's with you every day. Here's the second way to think on paper, a projects book. This is simply a ring binder with tabs in it to help you keep track of all the current people and projects you are involved with and need to work on to make all the parts of your life work to the maximum. If you are working with people, give them each a tab in your projects book. Then under this tab, you keep a running account of all the current information you need to know about that person. Performance, family, goals, strength, needs, perhaps even some graphs showing recent progress or comparisons to past performance. Essentially, you make a note of all the information you need to know so that when you sit down to have a meeting with this person, you have all the pertinent facts there before you in order to have a meaningful and productive conversation. Without this habit, it's so easy to take up time talking with someone and get so very little accomplished because most of the meeting ends up by being devoted to bringing you up to date on the facts you could have already had in your projects book.
Everybody, let us say together, lead and grow your wings on the way down. See, in order to control your destiny, you've got to be a risk taker. You got to be willing to risk people talking about it. You got to be willing to risk someone saying no. You got to be willing to fail again and again and again. You're different. You're an entrepreneur. You're strange. You're not like everybody else. We live in a world where we're told more about our limitations rather than our potential, and so most people just can't see themselves doing better. But you're different. You see some things they can't see. And I encourage you, every one of you in this room right now, you're here for a reason. How many of you know people who should be here? Raise your hands, please. Yes. But you know what? They're in their rightful place. Their rightful place is where their thoughts have brought them. Their true place is where their thoughts can take them. Everybody is in their rightful place. Here's something else. Seek out positive information. I want you to write this down. My Facebook page is brown.less. Every day we post a positive message there. Every day, brown.less. Because you're in this room, I want you to write this down. Because we're going to send you, we're going to do something called presentation power. You're going to get a chance to view some videos that will give you some directions. But more importantly, I'll tell you what I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you 7 power strategies of how to be a powerful storyteller. So email me at yes@lesbrown.com and say, send me the 7 principles. Mention that you were at this convention. We'll send that to you free. It will give you a guideline how to tell your story. When I started off this presentation, I started off telling my story. I was born in the poor section of Miami, Florida, in Liberty City. Born in an abandoned building with a twin brother. You remember I told you that? My mother worked on Miami Beach as a domestic worker, making up beds, cooking for families. Remember I told you that? See, your story is your power. How many of you have gone through some things? Raise your hands, please. How many of you have experienced some things in your life? Raise your hands. How many of you have periods in your life like me where you're temporarily insane? Raise your hand, please. Your story. The presentation power will tell you how to tell your story. I've given lectures at Harvey, Yale, spoken around the world, telling my story. You got a story too. Here's what the power of the story does, and why it's important in your presentation and building your organization, and why it's going to give you the upper hand in how to recruit people, and how many like to get A players? Raise your hands, please. Good. Here's what your story does. Write this down. Distract. See, how people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. When you're presenting one-on-one or a small group or in a large group, when you tell your story, you're creating an interruption. When you're telling your story about the business of being on a path of creating financial independence, you're interrupting their story, what psychologists call the self-explanatory style. So distract. Let us say together, distract. Here's the other one. Say dispute. When you are going through your presentation, and we're going to teach you how to do this, you're dismantling their limited belief system where they've been programmed to believe only in having a job, the journey of the broke, where they're miserable. They go to work, where they pay them just enough to keep them from quitting, and they work just hard enough to keep from getting fired. That's what you call mixed emotions. Seeing somebody you hate drive off a cliff in your car. You're glad they're gone, but not in my car.
And it begins when you understand. It begins, Marcus, when you understand. It begins when you understand. He still wants you. He still wants you. Your voice in the choir, your message, your service. He still wants you. He still wants you. You're still his daughter. You're still his baby girl. Mistakes and all. He still wants you. He's still got a plan for your life. I'm not excusing your shame. I'm not justifying your mistake. I'm telling you that his grace is bigger than your disgrace and that he still wants you. I'm telling you that God is bigger than your deepest secret, your darkest night, your daughter out of wedlock, your disgrace, your drug addiction, your problem, your pain, your self-medication, your trauma, your family crisis. The scandal in your family is not bigger than the grace of our God. I came to tell you he still wants you. Came to get to you before you end up in the potter's field, self-destructing, self-medicating, self-destroying every opportunity over something you can't get rid of. God loves you, man. That God actually loves you. He still wants you. And you thought you just zoomed in to be zooming in. God wanted you to hear this word. This particular message has got your name on it. I can't help that she don't want you. He still wants you. I can't help that they're talking about you. He still wants you. I can't help how they stare at you. God said, I still want you.
Do you believe that every person has the ability to choose the right path, the spiritually enlightened path?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not easy. It can be tremendously difficult. It's easier to quit. It's easier to succumb. It's easier to give in. But to go forward, that's tremendously difficult. You have to be bold to do that, to say, no, this is not where I'm going to be.
Think about it in your own life. Haven't you had some area of your life where you raised your standard and your life has never been the same? Maybe at one time in your life you smoked cigarettes, or you did something and you did it for years and you kept trying to change it, and kept telling yourself I should. And then one day something happened. Something just clicked you over. Something took you over that kind of tipping point. And inside yourself, you said, no more. And it was a very, very different experience, wasn't it? Something inside of you shifted.
Most people avoid the struggle. Most people go through life avoiding pain. And when you go through life like that, something in you dies. Something in you that you never activate is lying dormant in there, that you never get a chance to call on because you have not challenged yourself. Somebody said, the land of familiarity belongs to the dead.
We're going to play to win now. We're not playing to play. We're not playing to see how we do. We're not playing for fun. Once you start getting some winning, you start changing.
You must have faith. You've got to believe in yourself.
You talk different. You walk different. All of a sudden, this isn't the same damn human being.
You've got to believe in your abilities. You've got to believe in your service, your company, your ideas, unquestionably. You've got to have faith, and that faith gives you patience.
You can change you. You'd be surprised what a little winning would do. You'd be surprised how good you'd be if you just decide to win.
At the end of those kind of days, when you feel good about yourself, self-confidence starts to rise. You know that if you can have this kind of a good day, you can have another one the next day, and those days become the weeks become the months, and the month becomes a powerful year. Self-confidence comes from the lack of neglect. If you will not neglect to do the small daily disciplines, that's where self-confidence comes from.
Everyone takes the limits of their own vision for the limits of the world. Arthur Schopenhauer. There is all around you right now the reflections of your world belief. They're so ever present that you don't even see them. All the assumption that you've made about the world, the things that are possible, what you're capable of, who you are, the very definition of what it means to be alive, all of it is completely invisible.
So whenever you feel like your professor or teacher has lost their mind because they're overwhelming you with a workload that seemingly will take up all of your time, I need you to pause and recall the reason why you made the choice to invest your time. And never lose sight of the fact that you were destined to shine. Never lose sight of the fact that you were made for this grind.
You have to see past limitations and see only potential. You can't be looking at what the chances are that you're going to get through something. You have to know in your heart of hearts, somehow, some way, you have prepared yourself well enough. You will get through this moment. You will find something on the other side.
And so accept the responsibility. See yourself as primarily responsible for your outcomes and your experiences.
And make no mistake, those limits are self-placed. And for the people that are willing to push that, for people that are willing to go beyond that, for people who understand there are things in this world that they're prepared to die for, and it is the thing that they put at the center of their life. It is the thing that they are living for. But they're not going to stop, and they understand that where the human mind thinks it will break is far short of where it will actually break.
Never lose sight of the fact that no hole is too deep for you to climb up out of. And above all else, your why will never, ever allow you to withdraw.
And as long as you've done the work, as long as you've understood that every moment leading up to this has been about practice, it's been about putting in the work, it's been about having the discipline to do the things that other people are not willing to do, so when the game time comes, you're ready.
So let me tell you something. Everybody has a dream, but there is a behavior that must follow your belief system. Remember this, behavior follows belief.
I spoke at an education summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the education summit for Microsoft, I would say that 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Education Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One is playing this way, and one is playing that way. One is playing finite, and the other one is playing infinite. Guess which one gets frustrated. So at the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune when it was a thing. And let me tell you, this thing was spectacular. It was the most elegant piece of technology I'd ever used. The user interface was incredible. The design was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. It was easy to use, and it was bright and gorgeous and fantastic. It didn't work on iTunes, which is a different problem, so I couldn't use it, but it was amazing. And elegant. My God, it was elegant. So I'm sitting in the back of a taxi with a very senior Apple executive, sort of employee number 12 kind of guy. And, you know, I like to stir pots. So I turned to him, I said, you know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune. And it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turned to me and he said, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player understands sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. Sometimes your product is better and sometimes it's worse. The goal isn't to be the best every day. The goal isn't to outdo your competition every day. That's a finite construction. If I had said to Microsoft, I've got the new iPod Touch and it's so much better than your Zune, they would have said, can we see it? What does it do? React, 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 react. Finite players play to beat the people around them. Infinite players play to be better than themselves. To wake up every single day and say, how can we make our company a better version of itself today than it was yesterday? How can we create a product this week that's better than the product we created last week? We also have to play the infinite game. It's not about being ranked number one. It's not about having more followers on Twitter than your friends. It's not about outdoing anyone. It's about how to outdo yourself. It's not about selling more books or getting more TED views than somebody else. It's about how to make sure that the work that you're producing is better than the work you produced before. You are your competition. And that is what ensures you stay in the game the longest. And that is what ensures you find joy. Because the joy comes not from comparison, but from advancement.
So step number 1, decide to develop the habit right now, the habit of focusing on what's right in your world instead of what's wrong. The habit of focusing on what you do have instead of what you don't have in a situation. And as basic as that is, and as well as you know it, you've got to make it a habit. Because those habits form the chain of your ultimate character, of who you become and how you end up living your life. We've got to condition ourselves, because if we don't, we'll go back to the automatic state that most people live in today's society. The way to develop the habit is to go on a mental diet. I did this several years ago. As positive as I was going through unbelievable pain at the time. I had some major disappointments, some frustrations. I felt like I'd given it all. But what turned me around is one day I picked up this book called The 7-Day Mental Diet. It was a little tiny little booklet. And all the booklet really did was, for about 12 of the 14 pages, it challenged me to really see if I could really truly, for 7 days, live my life without one negative thought. And it kept saying throughout the book, now don't just say, yeah, I can do it, and don't just say, I'm going to do it. Think for a while before you commit to this. Don't actually commit unless you're really going to do it for 7 straight days, no matter what. It doesn't mean you don't have a negative thought. It just means that if you have a negative thought, you don't speak it. You set it aside, you forget about it, or you replace it. If you say something negative, you go erase. What I really mean is this. Or you say, that's not what I mean. Here's what I mean is this. And you immediately focus on something good. It's not that nothing negative ever comes out. It's that you immediately do not allow yourself to hold a negative feeling, a negative thought for 7 straight days, day and night, even when it gets tough, even when somebody disappoints you, even when you get frustrated, even when you give your all and it still turns up lousy. Listen, if all I did was rant and rave on this tape and you didn't listen to anything else I said, but you took on this 7-day challenge, you can't believe what it'll do to your life. Now, I got to tell you, when I first read the book, I thought, wait a second, being positive isn't going to change my life. I got to deal with the real problems around me, those real challenges that are out there. I don't want to just be positive. Somebody says, how's it going? I go, I'm doing great. And they go, why? You go, I don't know, but I just feel good. I don't want to be that way. I want to be real. I want to be on top of things. But you know what? I thought, wait a second. I can be positive about solutions. I can still notice that there's some challenges out there without being negative about it. I can look at the challenges and say, okay, here's what's good about this. Here's how we can use this. Here's how we can turn this thing around. And continue to focus on that. So I took on the challenge for 7 days, changed my life. Now, by the way, one of the keys is you have to have 7 straight days of being absolutely positive. Not one negative thought, not one negative expression that you hold on to. Got to let go of it immediately. If you do not do this, if you're 3 days into it and you do well, and then you have a bunch of negativity, you got to start over. And you know what? After you go about 4, 5, 6 days in a row doing really well, something major negative is going to happen. How's that for some positive programming? But what it is a test to see how committed you really are. I'll tell you something. After 7 days, you feel like a different person. People around you respond to you like you're different as well. All you want to do is establish the habit of noticing what you do have instead of what you don't have. Noticing what's great about a situation versus what's not great. Focusing on solution instead of problems. That's what changes your life.
Your mind is a weapon, and you got to begin to use it and pick that weapon up and control it. Most people are out of control with their mind. They don't point it at something. They let the world point it, and they misfire all the time. So today, I want you to pick up that weapon that is your mind and begin to point it at the things you want, knowing that it's a magnet that draws to you the things in your life that you would most like to have or that you would most not like to have. And that's where most people make the mistakes in their life. So today I want you to begin with first taking an inventory of the thoughts you have that don't serve you. And I want you to write them down. And I want you to eliminate them. Step 1, write down the thoughts that don't serve you and eliminate them. How do I eliminate them? By replacement. You eliminate them with replacement by thinking a new thought. It's as simple as saying, what thought would I need to have that would serve me to get this goal or dream or vision that I have? And get that thought, write it down, repeat it over and over and over and over again. Because there's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And it's the filter that we see the entire world through. I talk about it a great deal in my book, Max Out Your Life. You can click the link here. There's a little bit of the description in the bio as well, or go to maxoutbook.com. You can get the book or go to Amazon. But I talk about this in the book. the reticular activating system is the filter through which you see the entire world. It's powerful. And so that's why it filters out all the things in your life that aren't important to you, so that you can be sane. You don't feel the blood rushing through your left ear. You're not conscious of your breathing. A million stimulus would hit you. If you couldn't filter things out, you'd go crazy. This allows you to only filter into your consciousness what is most important to you. And what's most important to you is what you think about all the time. And it creates a filter. For example, that's why if something's important to you, the reticular activator reveals it to you through vision, sound, touch, you name it. And so, for example, you ever buy a new car, you got a new, blue Honda car. All of a sudden, don't you see that car everywhere? It's on the third, it could be 3 lanes over, other side of the freeway. You see blue Hondas all of a sudden everywhere. They were already all over the road. Why do you see them all of a sudden? You ever notice that before? Because that's become important to you, because it's part of your reticular activating system now. So what if you could program your mind that the blue Hondas of your life are your goals, your dreams, and your visions? And the way we do that is repeated thinking, looking at our goals, visualizing them, seeing them over and over again. So let me give you a couple tips to do that. Number one, your smartphone you check about 400 times a day. 400. The most important thing you could do is on your screensaver, program the thoughts that would serve you, the goals that would serve you. That gives you 400 triggers a day. Every time you pick up this phone, you're looking at your blue Hondas. You're looking at what's most important to you. And what happens is when you put that down, the RAS begins unconsciously to help filter into your existence the people, the places, the conversations, the things that will help you materialize that space you've created with the thought. It fills it with the furniture of your life, the furniture, the people, places, and things. So the second thing is to program your phone with your goals and dreams. That's 400 triggers a day to begin to alter those 9% of your thoughts.
So positive thinking is very important. Of course, you want to clean out toxic beliefs, because in many ways your daily behavior shows your deepest beliefs, but you want to work on mindset along with your heart set, and then along with your health set. Sort of a new word I've been playing with, which is, of course, you want to take care of your health. Why? Because it'll give you more energy, it'll affect your brain in positive ways, it'll reduce stress, it'll make you more resilient, it'll give you more grit, but also it'll give you longevity. And just imagine if you had another 20 or 30 years of your life, what you could do in terms of your income, your impact, your influence. And then mindset and heart set and health set, and then soul set. And soul set really is another word I've been playing with and teaching, but that's the fourth element really of a world-class interior life, because if you haven't worked on your soul set, your soul, your spiritual life, then you won't know some kind of a mighty mission or cause that's bigger than your ego. And if you haven't found that, then there's no way in the world you'd be able to take a bullet for that cause or that obsession that is important to you. And as I've often shared, until your mission becomes your obsession, your business will never rise into a movement. So I wanted to offer you those ideas, and I wanted to also remind you of a few things that deep within me I believe are very true. Number one, please remember, genius is less about your genetics and natural gifts, and it's more about your daily routines and your daily rituals, and filling your life with the right people, and filling your mind with the right information, and your heart with the right emotions. And we all can do this. I mean, it's one of the great sadnesses of the world that we pedestal these people who are living, great business lives, or great humanitarians, or great inventors. Like I was very blessed to spend some time with Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple Inc. Last week. And what I learned from him was quite remarkable. And I learned in particular about his commitment to only release world-class products, but also to be a very humble human being, and to be a good person. And he said something when I interviewed him that I want to share with you. He said, when someone is bad to me, I'm good to them. That was a core philosophy. But again, if someone's bad to you, don't just shift to the positive thinking. Acknowledge if you're angry or sad or hurt or whatever. Acknowledge that so it doesn't stay toxic and repressed and suppressed in you, because that'll affect your performance and your thinking. Feel it and let it go. And then you shift to installing the right mindset. I hope that's making sense. But I know you can play a genius in your own unique way. I know that no matter what you're going through, whether it's good or not so good, it is for your good. I know that even if you're in a hard time of your life, you probably have 1,000 things you could be grateful for. But you know, the human brain has this negativity bias, and it allowed us to survive thousands of years ago when there was a lot of threats in our environment. Now in this modern age, we live like kings and queens relative to how people lived hundreds of years ago. And yet our brain still focuses on what we don't have and the negative qualities in other people and what we wish we had. And you know this, but you know, optically things on the outside look better in other people's lives, and we don't know what people are struggling with.